my name is Woody. This is Change in the House of Pods, a podcast about Deftones. My guest today is Todd Wilkinson. Tennis from Anti-Quant, Todd's new project. And of course, you probably know him from Team Sleep. And boy, do I love me some Team Sleep, man. This is an extremely special conversation for me. And in some ways, it sort of fills that hole in my soul from missing the Woodstock sessions back in the day. And of course, we're going to talk about that and the legendary Team Sleep demos, the genesis of Team Sleep. This is like a Team Sleep fanboy's dream come true. And I am that fanboy. But we don't even get to Team Sleep until about an hour into this conversation. Because obviously, if you know anything about Todd, he goes back with Deftones all the way to the beginning. Before the beginning, he lived with Chi and Chino. Later, he lived with Frank. And we learned quite a bit about Frank here. I think maybe more than we have in any podcast I've done. And another huge thing that I took away from this conversation was a more complete picture of the Sacramento creative community these guys were a part of, and still are to this day. But there are so many wonderful tidbits in here. Kid Casio in the 4-track Man, the Team Sleep song Todd calls a total Pumpkins rip, sneaking into the Cactus Club to see the Pumpkins, Fallacy, and Hole with Kurt Cobain in the house. Man, I am humbled and extremely grateful to share my conversation with Todd Wilkinson.
I think I was at their first show, and I think I was friends with Chino. Like we met in like a math class when we were in high school. So I think it must have just been from him. Like, oh, my band is playing, and yeah. I mean, I was like a sophomore in high school, so it was a little while ago.
Yeah, word. And that's originally how you and Chino met, was just in school, right? Just in math class, huh?
Yeah, me, Chino, and Abe all went to the same school.
So you were you playing music at all at that time as well?
Not really. I mean, like a little bit. Like my brother, because the thing is that I live in Los Angeles now. And I lived in Los Angeles then, and then I moved to Sacramento, like when I was in high school, my freshman year of high school. And my brother, though, that I lived with in Los Angeles, like he played music, so like he played bass. So I'd mess around a little bit with the dudes in the neighborhood out here, but I wasn't really, not really.
So you weren't like looking for a band or doing anything at all like that?
No. I mean, I think that for me, maybe we had like similar taste in music. I think that it was like we were both into the Bad Brains. And that was kind of the thing that we became friends about. But it was like, I remember it was like we both liked the Bad Brains, and then Ice Cube. And then, no, maybe it was like, that was a little bit late, but like, and then like The Cure or something like that. Cause it was like, there was just like a weird combination of things that just not a lot of people were into, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that was really, I mean, at that time you were sort of like in one sort of clique or group or the other, right? Like you were either a hip hop fan or you were like a punk, or was that what it was like at high school in Sacramento and in early 90s? What was it, late 80s, early 90s?
Late 80s, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I think that there, like when I was in Los Angeles, it was definitely like there was a lot of overlap between like the dudes in my neighborhood were heavy into like Suicidal Tendencies and like that kind of band, you know what I mean? And
Sure.
then a lot, I mean, it wasn't like just them, but it was like there was a lot of those bands in my neighborhood, in my area where I grew up. So that there was a lot of just like cultural crossover between those things because of that, like in a lot of ways, like more than just music. But I think that there was also like this kind of like metal punk rock, and then like with graffiti writing, like that was a part of it as well. And I think that kind of naturally lent itself to hip hop music. And so that was kind of what I was around when I was a little kid. And then, but at the same time, it was all like, very much like a bunch of boys trying to be tough guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I was very much into like surfing too, and like I played basketball a lot. So like at some point though, it was just kind of like, I remember like just being like, if somebody called you a poser, it was like the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? But it's like if you grow up and like you're wearing like socks pulled up to your knees and cut off dickies and you got your hat flipped up and you're like, that's some real serious posing. Like posturing, you know what I'm saying? But it's
yeah.
So I think that being able to see a lot of these different things from different perspectives made you like, I love Suicidal Tendencies now, and I love Cryptic Slaughter, and I love Excel, but like I went to a show the other day in Venice, like down the street from my house, and it was like just like a bunch of punk rock dudes, and it was like, yikes, I don't know, man. My friend Zion is calling me right now.
Can you take it?
No. I want this in the episode. Here, actually, I'm gonna take it right now, but let's put this in the podcast. Zion.
Yo, T, what's happening, man?
Hey, I'm gonna call you back, all right? I'm recording something right now.
Yeah, hey, dude, hit me up a little. I'll hit you up tomorrow.
I know.
All right, brother.
Hey, he's gonna be in this episode. Watch.
Who is that?
My friend Zion. He actually, I don't think it's a long story, but that's how Frank got in Deftones in a way.
Can you tell me that story?
Yeah, so like Zion and Crook and Frank grew up out here in LA. And like they grew up at like, Crook was from like Silver Lake area or something like that. And then Frank was from Whittier, and Zion was from like Whittier or like La Puente or something out there. And those dudes grew up together. And then Zion somehow ended up moving to Sacramento with his like family or something like that. And then Frank later ended up moving to Sacramento, or his like Frank's ex-girl like moved to Sacramento. And then he was already friends with her, and then with good friends with Zion. So then Frank moved out to Sacramento. And that's how we became friends, because Zion was like a part of this hip hop group called Socialistic, which I don't know if you heard of those dudes.
Sure.
So those dudes were all like, that was like one little crew, and we had some kind of like connections to those guys. And then later it was like Frank was working with them, and we were all hanging out together, and I was living with Chino at the time, and his he got pregnant, like he and his wife at the time, like they got pregnant, and so they moved out, and then Frank moved in.
Oh wow!
Kind of connection to all these little, just a bunch of kids. But I haven't talked to that dude in a little while. I called him yesterday because it was Christmas, and just hit me back.
That's cool. That's really cool. I think about, oftentimes, wondering how things came to be, wondering what happened, and thinking that maybe there were a lot of, grand plans or moves made, strategy, but a lot of it does seem like guys just knew each other, or, it was things happened out of circumstance, and they just sort of happened. It was never, it's fun to hear that, you know what I mean? It's fun to sort of untangle the web, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, same thing with him. I mean, it's like he grew up out there on the east side, kind of, and but he, was a black dude with dreads, but he was heavy into like Suicidal, but also like that same kind of mix of like whether it was like Ice Cube and The Cure, and like I said, Suicidal or something like that. So it was like,
yeah.
That I think was always a thing that all of our friends had in common, where I grew up here, and then when I moved to Sacramento, it was like I just want to hang out with everybody, and I want to go to all the parties and get to know all the people. And it was like a kind of like a prideful thing that like, oh yeah, I know this kind of music and I know this and I can grab stuff from here and I can grab stuff from here. And it's like just kind of being an omnivore and having fun with everything is real kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really cool. And that to me also makes sense just when I think about, you know, Deftones and really all of the music, a lot of the music that comes out of Sacramento. And like there's so much inspiration from everywhere. But it's unique that Sacramento has produced such a volume, like a high volume of players and artists who have really made names for themselves on a national and international way. Like that to me in particular feels really unique and special about Sacramento. The how close knit it all seems, and yet how global it all seems. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think Sac is a cool place, man. Like I think that now it's changing a little bit more, and it's becoming more kind of like just more people going in there with Bay Area money or you know whatever in a way that it's becoming more just kind of homogenized and.
Mm.
But I think that because it was big enough, but not too big, and like it didn't really have an identity, and but it's also like a really diverse place, like racially, and like it's everything's kind of mixed up there, you know, and so when I moved there, I thought it was like it lacked a lot of the pretentiousness or like self-awareness that people in Los Angeles had, where people in LA, I think were always trying to like angle something, you know what I mean? A little bit, and or at least like there was a lot of pressure on people to get attention. And I think that is self-destructive in a lot of ways, or leads people to be self-destructive in a lot of ways, or also just make weird music, you know, like or make weird decisions. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not like I'm just doing some stuff because I feel like it's like I'm trying to like build something. Like, and I think that things didn't really have as much of a chance of kind of just making really bad stuff on the way to making something unique, you know?
Yeah, truly. Everything takes time after all. But do you remember what do you remember about those early times, those earliest years of Deftones? Do you remember it being anything other than, you get some buddies in a band?
Really pretty much that, you know, and it wasn't just it was a lot, you know, there was like a large community around it too. It wasn't like they we all kind of came out of like a cool little scene where there was a bunch of different people doing stuff. And I think that a lot of different factors led into that. This is like maybe a little bit tangential, but I thought about this a while ago, but like Tower Records was headquartered in Sacramento, and we all were able to work for Tower, or we like almost all of us ended up working for Tower at one point or another. And it was like the worst, most poorly run like HR practices, you know what I mean? Where it was just like people did very little work. But I think that that's part of what made it a cool thing. And it kind of like gave a bunch of musicians and like different people, skateboarders, the ability to kind of just live and like connect with each other and just, you know, be able to pay rent and have fun, you know. And I don't think that like if you just contrast that with like, let's say like the creative culture here now, it's like people are so desperate for attention, and I think it shows in the weird things that people make.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Keeping it positive today. The weird things that people make.
That's super good though. I mean, but that's on point. I think you're right. Like, and the way that they consume it is so quick, and yet we're talking about, I think, especially Deftones having had that luxury of time and being able to gestate and develop. How many people do you say, when you said all of us worked at that tower, how many people, musicians within the scene are you talking about? Like,
100, like maybe 100.
wow.
Because it was like they had like Chino and I worked at the magazine shipping warehouse. Like Sonny, who was in Fallacy, like the band that like that was like the big band. Like Sonny ended up working for them later and like getting pretty high up, and like that was a cool experience. Just to see like one of our friends who's doing like cool creative shit and connecting like on a corporate level, you know.
Yeah.
It's still like that with him. In a really cool way. So it was always like, but then there was just so many, just like Zion, the guy that just called me, he worked in the magazine warehouse. It was a lot of people and different sections, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the fact that I knew people that were like graphic designers who worked for a magazine, the magazine that Tower put out, it was like, wow, like these dudes are doing stuff and people are seeing it. Because that just wasn't my experience prior to that, you know?
Yeah, totally. But that's really cool. That helps, I think, to sort of complete this picture. Because I try to imagine, what was this music scene? What was so special about it that allowed for all of these things to happen? But I feel like that is a central thing, like what you're talking about, just having employment. Like that's crucial. Like without that, you don't get to continue to create art. And like you were saying, like that's huge.
affordable rent and just being able to work like 35 40 hours a week and then just have the rest of your time to do stuff. It's just, human beings do cool stuff, man. And I think it also just, like I said, like not having too much pressure on people, and it's like letting people develop stuff. And I mean, it was like we had so much fun, dude. Like just riding our bikes around and just being goofy and going to shows here. We're gonna go so and so's house here. Like in Sacramento, Midtown Sacramento, it's like from B Street to X, and then from 5th to 28th, it's just like a grid, and it's all just straight up, the numbers and the letters like blocked out, and pretty much everybody in that neighborhood, like pretty much all of us lived in that neighborhood, so we were, it's not that far. You could, like, if it was too far to walk, it wasn't too far to ride a bike.
Word.
And that was cool. I mean, like, so that, Deftones, obviously, all, so many bands came up in that little area.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, that's community, right? Like that's what it is. It really is literally community. That's so cool.
Yeah, and a lot of innocence too. I mean, it was very much, I mean, before that, actually even before we all moved to Midtown, like I knew the Willhaven Cats when I was in high school. And probably, I don't remember how, but like they, Deftones and Willhaven, and I don't even know if that band had even started yet, but like it was just a bunch of kids that we all kind of knew each other. And we'd go skateboarding, we'd go out on bikes around, we'd go to shows at the Cattle Club, and then we all kind of ended up living in the same little area. So, but it was, it was like The Outsiders or something, just a bunch of boys being, well, it wasn't that dramatic. It was just a bunch of dirty boys just riding bikes around, but like super nice, I mean? I feel like there was a lot of kids that were, I mean, it was like wild, but within certain limits, you know what I mean?
Yeah, nobody was trying to hurt anybody. Nobody was really trying to break the law too hard.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, like there's a lot of people, I don't know if it was just kind of like-minded people kind of gravitating towards each other, but there's a lot of people even now that we grew up with, or that I grew up with in LA, and then moving to Sacramento, and it's like you see people like, oh damn, this dude's doing a bunch of drugs, and then people just start dying or whatever, and it's like, cool, I'm doing fun stuff over here. You know what I mean?
Word.
I think that luckily I mean, when I was 17, I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with Chino and Chi. And there's probably a lot of ways that could go bad. But those dudes are really just good-hearted people, and like really just we had a lot of fun, you know.
What was that like? Talk about living with those dudes when you were 17.
It was just fun, man. Like I graduated from high school, and then I moved. I moved back here, but then I had a girlfriend, and like Chino and this girl came out and picked me up, and then I went back with them, and I ended up just staying with Chino and Chi. And Chi was going to school at the university, Sacramento State University, and he worked there. And then Chino moved in with him, and he got a job at the Dining Commons. And then I moved back, and or with them, and then I got a job at the same spot. So we worked together, and we lived together. Like I said, 3 dudes in a 1-bedroom apartment. And so I was 17. I think she was probably 22. He was definitely 21, and at least. And
telling on yourself. Somebody was buying beer. It was cheap.
I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but a man can take the fall for that one this time, I guess. But yeah, man, it was just so like we worked together, and it was just fun, dude. And like it was always kind of like, but like that was, I mean, there's like little things that we used to do where like, even though Chi was 5 years older than me, he didn't really have to shave because like he didn't have a lot of hair.
Right.
So we'd have to like shave and like, yo, let me check that out. Let me check out how do you do that razor, and like, yo, this shave, you know what I mean? Little things like that. Or just like going to the grocery store, and she would always like cook up some Chinese stuff, and then we like just like learning how to go to the grocery store, and it's like, damn, I got $5. I gotta make this last a week. And then, how are we gonna do that? And it's like that's some kind of just like it was weird that it was like we were just learning how to live, is like trying to become adults together, you know what I mean? And like I'm happy, I'm super, super grateful that it was those dudes, and not like, there was no kind of like weird mean-spirited shit or like people just trying to be weird, whatever. It was always kind of like, it was kind of a cool kind of innocence to that in a way.
That's really cool. I mean, I've had some great roommates. I've also had some really terrible roommates. So like that you just look back on it fondly. Like I could tell like you really enjoyed and appreciated that time. Like that's special. That's really cool. Especially when you're 17.
Right.
Man, like that's why in a one room apartment with 3 dudes at 17, nobody cleaned anything. Nobody.
No. One time Chi made this chicken, and I remember I probably still got the sauce in it's Lee Kum Kee chicken marinade. And I always get it still because of him. And it's like he cooked it. It was like in a pot, and then you put like some star anise and some garlic, whatever, and like you kind of like simmer it, and like it's like just like this really good. But like when you buy a whole chicken and there's like the innards or whatever, and like he put them somewhere. And then it got covered up with some papers or whatever.
Oh, no.
Like that place smelled so bad. It was like, and we couldn't figure out where it was, It was disgusting. It was really, really disgusting. And maybe, I'm going to blame it on him.
That's smooth that he was at least around to cook.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And we did too, but like we were just, there was like a little spot across the street too where we used to go get rice and beans, and they had really good salsa. And like the owner they just opened up, and they always like hooked us up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let me get some rice and beans for $1, and they hooked us up.
That's dope as hell. That's so smooth, man. That's crazy. What a crazy time to like, I don't know. You're forging this friendship with these dudes who are starting off on this.
Isn't that what everybody does?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yes, but not always in a like a synergetic way, to use a really terrible like corporate garbage jargon word. Like a lot of times it sucks and your roommate's a dick and you punch him in the nuts and You know what I mean? Like it's not always cool, and it certainly doesn't always lead to lifelong friendships.
I guess. I mean, yeah, maybe it's just lucky that, it's like, I guess maybe it takes a lot of patience too, but, it's my dudes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
all of those dudes would be around. Like that house, everybody would be around. Like the Willhaven cats, like all those dudes were, it was like we'd have little parties and stuff all the time, and it was super fun.
Yeah.
It was right
So
by the cattle club.
about what yearishness is this? Like 80, 92?
Yeah, that was when I graduated from high school.
Wow. So 92, you're graduating. You're all working at the college, but nobody's going to the college because everybody's just.
No, she was going to the college.
Oh, he was?
Yeah. So
Oh,
like,
okay.
he was going to school, and that's how like he had that apartment. He moved from Stockton to go to school there.
Of course.
And then he had the apartment, and then Chino ended up moving in, and then I ended up moving in. So I mean, I guess that's a real like if I was 22 and I don't know if I'd be having people moving into my apartment like that.
Yeah,
But,
right.
I'm sure everybody's told you the same thing. She was just so much fun, dude. We used to do just ridiculous stuff, and it was so much fun.
Talk about Chi.
Man, he was very like he'd always make fun of himself, and like he it was kind of like dad jokes too, you know what I mean? It was just like his jokes, but it was hard not to love the dude, and at that time I was, like when I moved in with them, I was, I read a lot, and she was studying English, studying literature at the school. And so we would always read books and stuff. Like we read Dharma Bums together, and then we went to Mount Tamalpais, and like Dharma Bum, like all the beat stuff and all of that. It's this super funny kid stuff. And she had this Subaru car, like hatchback, and they used to drive that all the time out to the shows in San Francisco. And we used to go to San Francisco quite a bit to go to shows out there, and like a lot of them were in like North Beach area or whatever. And that was always fun to just go skateboarding in Embarcadero, and just be in the city and just be wild, and it's fun stuff, man. But yeah, so Chi and I definitely had like that connection with reading books and literature, and I ended up going to school there too and getting my bachelor's, my master's degree at that school in literature. And definitely like Chino and I both like were not successful students in high school.
Okay.
And in the sense that like I feel like the message that we got from school, like before we even knew each other, but just as like healthy boys, was like do what we tell you to do. And like not submissiveness in the sense of like, oh, I'm not gonna do what they, like Rage Against the Machine, I won't do what you tell me.
Right.
But just like it's like a weird thing that like in a way when you're a kid, I think that schools a lot of times punish you for being healthy. And it's like we wanted to run around and do stuff, go skateboarding and have fun and like do all these things. But at the same time, like Chino's a smart dude, man. And I'm like average intelligence. And like for us to be kids in high school and like generally get the message that like what we're doing is wrong is like in retrospect we weren't. And like the schools were like kind of lame, like, and but in a way I'm grateful for that too, because it's good to have something like that you're opposed to, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Good. And I mean I think something to rebel against, but not too hard, you know?
Why? Because it propels you forward?
Yeah, just kind of like, I mean, I think it hurt in a way because I didn't think that I was capable. And I think that like all of us kind of got the sense that like, all right, well, there's something wrong with us. But I think that it did make us more independent as well, you know?
Yeah.
I'm a high school teacher now too.
You
And
teach high school?
yeah, I teach high school English. And I think about that stuff all the time. It's like a long time I taught in like low income neighborhoods, and it's like you see it with kids who a lot of times when you see kids who aren't doing what you it's almost like treating kids like with a police mentality or something like that, like do what I tell you to do, like first and foremost. And you know, for kids, it's like whether it's like black kids or a lot of Latino kids, their first experience from adults is submit, and if you don't, we're gonna punish you. And you know, like that, you know, you wonder why people when they become older, you know, there's much larger consequences for that. But it's pretty systematically beat into people, you know, and that's not that cool.
Word.
I know I'm rambling right now.
No, this is a space for rambling.
I have
Podcasts are the medium for rambling. So
right. Yeah, edit it as you feel free. But the listeners, if you feel like I'm just rambling and just saying random shit, pay more attention.
right.
A code to it. It's like a deeper meaning.
But I think it does, you know, part of my goal, maybe the biggest goal of this podcast has been to learn about my favorite band. And it's tricky, I think, at a certain point to understand them without sort of getting personal and understanding who they are as human beings, not just studying the music, right? So understanding some of the motivation and like the mindset and you know, it's only been while I've been doing this podcast for a couple of years and have been, you know, loving this band for 30. It's only come to light really in the past, I don't know, 6-12 months, like how important authenticity and like not sounding like anything else was from this band for this band from the jump. And some of the things that you're telling me too, like about this, you know, the circumstances. So like understanding these motivations is in essence is what I'm just learning about, really. You know what I mean? It's cool. I think it is fun. It does provide context, the people that you're with, the place, the time. So the more light that all of that sheds is great. It's cool. I think it still provides insight into where they are today. So all of that is dope to me. Like all of that is sick and fascinating. Like from the dirty apartment to, you know what I mean, to the just rolling to San Francisco to kick it and to catch live shows. I'm sure you guys caught a lot of live shows, especially with the Cattle Club being in your backyard. Like, do you remember any like wild shows from the back in the day?
Yeah, man. There was actually this guy named Brian McKenna who's a promoter in Sacramento. He still is. He posted this thing on Facebook the other day, and I don't remember. Let me see if it was. I sent it to Chino because this show was funny, man. It was Smashing Pumpkins, our friend's band Fallacy, which had Abe in it at the time, and Abe and my man Sonny, and Hole, and let me see, 31 years ago.
Wow.
On December 20th, 91. And so we went to that show, and I remember it was like a big deal because Nirvana, like Nevermind, had just come out. I remember that day, the day that came out, Chino had it, and then it was like we were with our friend Travis, and it was like his girlfriend had a Volkswagen Bug. We were driving around listening to the Nevermind record, and it was like, I don't know why, we just drove like really far out, and then for no reason. we were listening to that record, which was super cool. And then the Pumpkin shit was just our shit, you know what I mean? And I loved Gish so much, and you know, I think still to this day, like those records are the reason that we really started playing music. And even Deftones were around before that, but you know, I think that was such a big deal. And like, so that show, I don't remember if it just sold out. It was whatever. It was $6 show. I'm looking at the flyer right now.
Whoa.
And for some reason, like we didn't have tickets, and we went. He came to pick me up in his mom's old bus. It was a van, like a Toyota Sunstar van. We went to the show. I don't know, maybe he had a ticket, but I had no. We both had to sneak in, and like I remember we had to like climb up on the roof and then jump off the roof and into the
No
van.
way, really?
But somebody, I don't know, maybe it was him. Like there's the security guard at the club. Oh, I'm not going to tell that part of the story because I don't want to. All I'm saying is we got into the show, and
Yada yada yada. We got it.
yada yada yada. Next thing you know, we're in the show. I actually don't exactly remember, but it was so rad to see Fallacy play, because like Fallacy was the hot band. And they you know, have you heard them? Like, have you listened to that?
Oh yeah, of course, for sure.
So like, I'm, you know, like I love that band still, and so it was so cool to see them play, and then I don't think I really knew who Hole was yet, maybe, but it was rad. Like Kurt Cobain was there, and like that was like, oh shit. And then Pumpkins was just at that time was just ripping. And so to see them play was really, really cool. But it was also like, I know that night it was right before Christmas, and like he had a job, and like he just cashed his paycheck and he lost the money. So you know, it was like over $100, and it was like when you're a kid, it was like, damn, I just lost. I think that was like my whole money to buy Christmas presents with. And then I think we ran out of gas on the way home too, and it was like we had to push the car to the
No.
Yeah, dude, it was like, damn, it was like so much happened that night. And then I'm not sure if it was the same. No, that couldn't have been the same night. But at one point, this is just a gratuitous story I'll throw in there. Like we went to pick up this girl, and Gina wanted to go, you know, pick her up. It might have been the same night, but I don't know. And like the girl's dad told him, because he had long hair and he had like a couple earrings, and the girl's dad said, "Nice earrings. Do you squat when you pee?" And it was like, oh shit. Like, what do you do to that? You know what I mean? Couldn't get mad.
You just got to eat that one.
No, it's like, you just gotta laugh at him, just like, I'm laughing at you.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, man. So like that stuff was, you know, but going to that Pumpkin show was definitely one of the more memorable ones. I know that we saw Bad Brains there.
And Kurt was there that night too. I'm sorry to interject. He was there, huh?
Yeah, he was there.
Wow.
Which was a trip. But man, I'm just like that lineup of like having, you know, our best friends playing with Hole and with Pumpkins, and just like seeing that it is pretty rad.
Yeah.
The guitar player from Fallacy, his guitar was out of tune the whole time.
It was out of tune the whole time?
No, it wasn't, but in case he hears this,
Just in case.
I just want to stab him in the throat real quick.
Oh, that rules. Who is that? Who are you talking about?
That's my friend Sonny, man. I love him to
Sonny
death.
from Fallacy?
Yeah.
Oh man. But that eventually became pretty normal, right? Like to see your friends on stage with eventual rock icons.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really, you know, it was hard to know. Like, I didn't know what that meant. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I still don't. I mean, I mean, that's one thing too for me growing up in LA is there was always this kind of sense that like there's these people around that are like popping and whatever, and it's like kind of cultivating a sense of nonchalance around that. It's like, and then actually believing it. It's like I actually don't give a fuck, and
Totally.
you know what I mean. And it's like,
Yeah.
Like when that's something that you're dealing with when you're a little kid, and like you're like moving in these worlds that are very like there's not a lot of barriers between you and people. You know what I mean? Like for me, surfing, it's like I'm around, like the whole kind of like, I'm surfing around people that I've seen in magazines when I was a little, and it's
Totally.
like, okay, cool. Like I gotta act cool around that. And then it's like at some point you just kind of forget that it's an act, and then the same thing with music and same thing with skateboarding. It's like you can't front, you know what I mean? And it's like at some point it's just like, maybe that's just normal. And I think that should be real. It's like I don't give a shit, but like, damn, did you see what he just did?
Word.
So
is that sort of what, like, because you said earlier, going and seeing those things, doing those things did motivate you to all this, well, especially with Pumpkins in particular, like hearing Gish and like understanding like, wow, this is really great. And it motivated you to play, right? So there was some element of at least understanding like what is good art and what is understanding while there may not be a barrier, like there is still something about what people are doing and producing. I don't know, does that change the way that you create, or does that change the way that you anything?
I don't know, like for me, I think I didn't like my approach to being creative was always a little bit weird too, because I didn't ever think that I would make records or do anything. Like when I was playing guitar to begin with, it was just kind of like I just wanted to hang out with my friends and just play around. And then I never tried to start a band or anything like that. I mean, that was always like the thing with Team Sleep, like with the press that we did. It was always kind of like, to begin with, it was always kind of just like we're talking about the 4-track thing and this and that, and like how because that's really what it was. It was like I was just recording things. I was going to school and like recording guitars on a 4-track, and it just so happened that like one of the only 2 or 3 people that heard it was Chino, and
Right.
Then, which was probably pretty lucky thing in that sense, but I mean, I think that we kind of when I lived with those 2 guys, with Chino and Chi, we had a couple guitars around, and like we just learn how to play stuff, and then we like make little funny songs for the answering machine, and then we had like a little Casio SK1, and we just play around, and
Please tell me you have some of those little answering machine tapes somewhere.
Dude, I do have a bag of tapes. I have a bag, but like it's probably not that. It was probably no, we did have like a band. It was called Kid Casio and the 4-Track Man, and we had some hits in this regional Sacramento area on answering machines. I think people used to call it answering machine just to hear it. And
Wait, so you would leave the messages. You would drop some hits on other people's machines.
Yeah, I'm sure we did that too. But like the outgoing messages.
Yeah. Okay. Word.
And
who's Kid Casio?
It was Kid Casio and the 4-Track Man, and one of us was, I forget which one of us was which.
It didn't really matter. One or the other.
It was 2 people.
Oh, that's super fun.
Yeah, man.
Hey, it's Woody for the Hair Restoration Institute of Minnesota. I turned 40 this year, and more than any other birthday, I felt like this year I deserved to really treat myself. And above all else, the one thing that I really wanted to do for me was fix my hair. I started losing my hair 20 years ago. It was awful. I loved my hair. Losing it was miserable. I hated the way it looked and having to hide under a hat for family photos. Then I went to the Hair Restoration Institute of Minnesota. They're the #1 hair transplant clinic in the Midwest with hundreds of 5-star reviews. And getting my hair restored was actually a relaxing experience. It was sort of like a day at the spa. There was no pain. It was really fast healing. I mean, I was back on the air in just a couple of days. Whatever your hair loss, whatever your goal, they have the surgical, non-surgical, and cosmetic options for you. Schedule your free consultation at hrimn.com. That's hrimn.com. And remember, you can't spell hair without HRI.
It's just so making music and creating was just sort of a byproduct of the hang.
Yeah, totally.
I think that that resonates to me when I think about Deftones today, because it always just seems like, you know, for 30 years of interviews, it's been about the hang first. When they're talking about making a record or making an album, you know, if the hang is good, then the music's good. But at some point that has to change when you're, you know, when you become Deftones and you become a international band recording artist. Like, but have you seen the hang still become like, is the hang still what's like the most important thing as far as you can tell? Is that still what like drives the creativity and the music?
I mean, I'm not around them that much, like when they're rehearsing these days, you know?
Sure.
But because obviously it's like, you know, like they don't even live in the same towns, and like
right.
when they rehearse, it's more like just like for a purpose, and you know,
right.
I don't really know like with that much, but you know, I mean, I know that I hang out with those dudes, and it's pretty much the same, you know, in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, like, you know, obviously there's stuff like family stuff and careers and all of that stuff that kind of pulls that apart to some degree. But you know, when it is, when we're, you know, and I'm sure when they're together as well, you know, there's just a lot of fun stuff. But I also think that like I mean, that's what makes their careers so extraordinary to me, is that like dealing with money and dealing with, you know, like those kind of decisions can harm any relationship. And the fact that those dudes are still that there's been so much pressure put on them, and in ways that would normally cause so much tension, and it has caused tension, I'm sure. But the fact that those dudes have been able to just like maintain friendships and be cool to each other is something that I don't think that they get that much credit for. That maybe people aren't really that aware of that, but like they've been under an extraordinary amount of pressure since they were really, really, really young. And the fact that, you know, they've maintained who they are as individuals, but also like being able to have relationships, good relationships with each other still, is something that very few people could do.
Yeah, I think you're right. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it's so like thinking back about like when we were kids, like I said, like when we were like when we were in high school or whatever, it's like if people are telling us that we were wrong for this or that or whatever, it's like, you know, I think maybe they didn't see the value that those guys had. And, you know, and I mean, I think of that myself as it's like, if a kid's getting in trouble a lot at school or whatever, it's like, I try not to have that be something that like affects my relationship with them. You know what I mean? Like maybe they didn't read anything and they still, you know, but it's like maybe they got a bad grade on something, but I don't think that I don't like to let that affect my personal relationship with people. And I think that, you know, that's because of the things that I've seen. It's like if Chino got kicked out of high school when we were kids, it's like this dude is such a, obviously like a really creative person and like a good-hearted person, and people just kind of didn't really see that value and literally just got rid of him. You know, that was a bad judgment.
Word. Word.
I think maybe they missed something.
Yeah, that's maybe rushing into a decision or two. Yeah. Did you think he was a great singer out the gate?
I don't think I thought of it as like there's HR and then there's Mike Patton and then there's Billy Corrigan and then I don't know. I don't think I thought of it like that. You know what I mean? But I liked them, and I liked their music and it was fun to just hang out, But later, like there's been a lot of times when I'll hear something and it's like, oh damn, that dude can sing. He's kind of good at this thing.
He's had a lot of practice.
Yeah, but also like a lot of people have had a lot of practice. No disrespect to anyone in particular, but a lot of people have been singing for a long time and they, aren't really that good at it. Or they're really good at it, but it doesn't appeal to me. I don't know. But like Chino's kind of good at this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Deftones song or album or is there anything that when you hear it that, or when you're talking about what you were just saying, is there anything that comes to mind in particular?
Oh, I was actually thinking of some TS shit, but like there's a song on the Team Sleep record that we did in Woodstock, that's Skull, and like he did this one thing, and it was like, oh shit. So he like some of the vocals on that. I mean, this is a live record. We didn't even really have a chance to rehearse, and we hadn't played those songs in a really long time, and it was with a different drummer, and he's good at this. But definitely, I mean, for me, like when I think about like music of theirs that I like the most, probably the first few records, just because, I mean, when they made the first two records, especially when they made Around the Fur, they had just built a studio and like a rehearsal studio, and we had a mini ramp in there, and that was like every weekend was just I'd be skateboarding. We'd go out there, probably like 8 o'clock, and then just be out there till like 4 a.m. And I would be skateboarding like the whole time and just falling down and falling down and falling down. But it's like, when you have that much energy in a room, and then when you hear that on those records, it does kind of bring that back. And also, like, I went to Seattle when they were recording some of those first few records, and that was some of the first time for me, like traveling, like anywhere, just like getting on an airplane and like going to different places, and like going to like professional environments, and like Terry Date was such a great human being to be around, like as just like a man, who is like a creative person who does cool shit and is like a great human being. I know that I've had conversations with Chino and Abe about that like how lucky they and we all were to be around somebody like that. It's just to look up to.
Yeah, Terry Date is obviously, I think, beloved and adored by fans, but it's interesting to hear you talk about him in that in a personal way and not in the the professional way, because I ask what makes Terry Date so great, and a lot of people talk about like, oh, he can find any sound, or he knows the thing, but it sounds like you really appreciated. What were you doing? You were just along for the ride to check it out, or were you
yeah, man, it was just
that's awesome. That's so cool. That's so rad.
Yeah, like when they did I don't know if it was the first record. I think I went up to Seattle, but I don't even remember where they recorded. But I'm pretty sure the first two records I was out there in Seattle with them just for like a few days, and it was just it was like, these are my friends, and like I said, it was you know, I don't maybe I guess maybe it's kind of obvious, but like not a lot of people. Um, it was just like so different from my experience. You know what I mean? Where it was like I'm a kid, got to get a job, I got to pay rent, I got to do this, I got to do that, and the fact that it's like, you know, these are my dudes, and like they're out here doing this. It kind of opens your mind to like possibilities that you know maybe you didn't think about. You know, and so getting to spend time with them, you know, uh, like I said, just getting on an airplane and just like I'm gonna meet my friends and like, uh, you know, I think I feel real lucky that we got to do a lot of stuff like that when I was pretty young. Um, and it was so fun, you know, just being goofy.
So when you hear like Around the Fur, you it takes you back to that time.
Yeah, totally, totally. Because I think that's when Frank was starting to work with them, and at that time, so it's like that's a whole other thing. But like for me, I didn't know Frank very well, and it was just kind of convenient that he was moving to Sacramento, or he had moved to Sacramento, but he was living in like a weird place that he kind of found, like a friend of a friend. And so when Chino moved out, and he was always, you know, it started hanging out with us a lot. It was just natural for him to move in with me. And Frank's quite a bit older than I am. Well, you know, not now, but it seemed like it at the time. And uh, but he um he's such a savvy music dude, and like so much you know, like he had his turntables at the house, and it was like every weekend was a party at our house, and like we'd play records. And because of him, you know, we would all play records and like vinyl, you know what I mean? And like not really scratching, but just kind of like mixing and like just learning how to think of music in a different way, in like a very much like a hip hop way. And that whole idea that I had of like I'm out, you know, listening to this kind of music and like listening to all of these different influences was when Frank moved in, it was just like immediately multiplied by a million, you know, like where every weekend we go record shopping. Every weekend we could be list, you know, we just go record shopping in the morning, go to thrift stores, uh go to like swap meets, go to the dump, go to record stores, all of this stuff, and just looking for records. And to me, like just looking at like Sun Ra records or you know, Alice Coltrane records, like I remember so vividly like hearing those records for the first time. And you know, and Miles Davis and like all of that stuff, and kind of getting a sense for more esoteric stuff and like left field kind of stuff. Um, that was such a cool thing. And then so every day was like looking for records, and then at night we'd be listening to it and playing records for each other. Like, you know, Frank, I mean, it was obviously I didn't really know what I was doing, but I'd get in there like every once in a while, you know.
Word. But Frank drove a lot of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. I know that there is, I mean, it's evidence in everything that they do, that they put out. When you hear you guys talking about music, like that's it's always made me wonder, like where and when did anybody have the time to consume this music, to like find this music? But it sounds like that was it. Like it was, and that just became part of the behavior.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it was, you know, like to me, like that's such like a hip hop mindset that is so different from I think what people think of with hip hop. I mean, to me, Frank and Crook both grew up right like graffiti writers, and my brother was a graffiti writer. And to me, like what that was always just trying to go out into your city and just see everything. You know what I mean? And like that it's such a way of expanding your mind, and just like, you know, like whatever, like I don't want people vandalizing my property or whatever, but like I think that if you think of it like this, it's like, why can McDonald's write on the walls in my neighborhood, but I can't? And you know, just like that is like a basic question. like I live here. I don't give people diabetes. Like, why can't
Word.
you do it? Like,
Yeah, word.
so like I think that like that is such like a DIY thing that I think that now people get, or even, you know, whatever, like people get the idea that hip hop is like swaggering and snarling and shitting on people and like, you know, like having more money than talking about it. Then, and I think that's such a disservice, and that comes from corporate, you know, record labels like promoting that. But for me, what that was like the punk rock thing, and then like the early hip hop thing was more about like expanding your mind and just trying to see everything, and just being excited and trying to like take all of these different things in and then make sense out of it somehow. And philosophically, like that's just such a cool thing. And I'm glad I got that education. You know, like super intensely, you know, because I definitely think that made me see the world differently.
That's really cool. That's really, it's interesting to think about, you know, obviously you have you cross paths with a million different people in your life, but then to have somebody all of a sudden just move in with you, and then you just begin this, you know, this journey along with them, a musical journey, which is a personal journey. Yeah,
really... Frank is a smart dude, man. Like he's a good, and like he's really like a good-hearted person too. So like to me, you know, it was like definitely like an older brother situation, you know, where like I looked up to him and learned a lot from him, and learned a lot in the same ways, like I was saying, like just like we go to the grocery store and like learn how to cook, and like how do we kind of like take care, like we were having to figure all of this stuff out like as like men, you know what I mean, like, but like no men around us, it was just us, you know what I mean, and just trying to figure that stuff out. And to get that along with the music stuff and just the general perspective on art, you know, it was real cool.
Do you remember, because that it's really fun, first of all, just talking about Frank, because I feel like we, for whatever reason, we don't often talk enough about Frank on this podcast, so it's really cool to hear about that time, especially, you know, his joining the band and becoming a part of the band. And it sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it really sounds to me like he more than adding a sound, added a perspective in joining the band. Yeah, is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he's like I said, he's a smart dude, and I definitely think his contribution goes deeper than just the actual auditory stuff that he puts on the record, you know. And you know, I don't know, like what, definitely in the beginning for sure. And I know like he's the type of dude that he's just good at a lot of things, and like he's like a deep diver, you know what I mean, and like he you know, I know during the pandemic he started getting into like streaming stuff and like just researching that, and put, you know, he puts so much effort into like working into things, and like, you know, I think it's, for him it's fun and it's creative. But I remember one time I asked him, I was like, yeah man, like if I was gonna stream some stuff or whatever, like what would, and he just like hit me with, I think it was weird to ask it on like a face or like a Instagram message or whatever it was, like he hit me back with like this long ass message, and it was like, oh shit, this dude is not playing games. And it's like he's always been kind of like that, where it was like, you know, knowing so much about music and like being so in depth. And Crook too, man. Crook is a badass dude. Like I think that a lot of times when those dudes are playing in clubs and they're just playing records, like a lot of people don't have the capacity to like know how dope they are. You know what I mean? And Word. It's like I mean, you know, having spent so much time with them, I think I get a grasp of it. But like those dudes are so deep into their thing, and they have so much knowledge about music and so many different kinds of music, and like how to, you know, play a set and like start it off a certain way and then build it, and then, you know, like throughout, and bringing in just so many diverse influences and being able to make them cohesive, that to me, that is like just like a level of intellectual and musical sophistication that just a lot of people don't get, you know, which really makes me sad. Like when Deftones got lumped in with like a lot of the other bands whose names I won't name, but like were kind of like rap rock kind of things,
Right.
because that was to me just adolescent, like shit talking, snarling. And to me, I feel like a dude like Crook or a dude like Frank just were like masters of their craft, you know, and like to just get lumped in with some mall shit was pretty whack, you know. It was a real failing of music journalists.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I can appreciate that. And anymore, I don't think that, you know, we have enough, you know, music journalists who are actually willing to do that homework and, you know, really find that understanding of who that person is and why they're not, like you said, a mall rock band DJ. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference. But that difference is so much in nuance when you're, you know, you're hearing it, that it's really special when you focus on those things, and the especially just the sounds that Frank in particular brings to the table, and how he adds the nuance that separates Deftones, I think, from, you know, every other band that just period, whether or not it's from their era and the other bands, the homogenized bullshit that came up around them, or the bands that have come and gone since. Like there's a difference, and it's a lot of it is in nuance, and it's really, I think that is largely a lot of that falls on him. Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know, those dudes have all, like Chino and Abe and like Steph, like those dudes are always super musically savvy as well. But for me, when I was, you know, I guess I was 19 or 20 when I first lived with Frank, and for me to just be around that all the time pushed me to just like expand my, like what I was into, and like just be way more adventurous, and like I said, with music, but with all forms of art, and just challenge myself to like understand things that maybe seem esoteric or whatever. But you know, that I think is having a role model like that was a really something I'm super grateful and real cool with Frank, but then also Crook as well.
I'm so embarrassed. The last time I saw Crook at the last Dia, and I was lit. I was out of pocket. I was way lit. I was super lit. And then I looked over and I saw him during Freddie Gibbs, and I was like, I gotta go say hi. That's Crook. I gotta go say hi. And I was like, what up, dog? I need you on the podcast, homie. And he was like, all right, bro. Nice to see. He was cool. He was hella cool. But I was like, man, I
don't want to say too much, but I have it on good authority that once or twice Crook has been lit.
He gets it. He's sympathetic to my failure.
We're all human, man.
That's what's up. Maybe I'll try him again, a little more sober next time.
Crook is a trip. Like he's really shy sometimes, but he's also nuts sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that too has come out, like, you were talking about the streaming. Like I was, especially in 2020, I was watching him stream, and Frank too, and all of that you were saying comes out, like, from the way that a set is put together. And I remember one time there was something I commented, and Frank was like, oh yeah, that's the manager of the so-and-so who put out an album and a thing. And remember that song? That was that dude. And I was like, it was just like this, like it was there. He had this wild, you know, out of nowhere music trivia at his fingertips. And so like all of those things that you're saying ring true for sure.
Yeah.
And
that's his life.
Crook. Yeah, word.
I mean,
Yeah.
like these dudes are not, you know, like this is their life. You know what I mean? Like they dedicated themselves to this shit when they were little kids.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's really you know, like I buy a lot of records, maybe not comparable, but like that leap is a lot, you know, that leap from being somebody who is fascinated or interested or, you know, just even curious to expert. Like that's commitment. That's a lifelong commitment to craft before I think even one really has a grasp on like, wow, like being really curious about music is like, that's craft. You know what I mean? Like that's art.
For real. Yeah, those dudes were very much 1,000,000% invested in it from the time I met them.
Obviously, it's great when your favorite band tours in your town, but what do you do when they don't? You travel to see them, of course. And believe me when I tell you, the Hair Restoration Institute of Minnesota is worth traveling for. Hey, it's Woody. I'm lucky. HRI is 5 minutes away from my house. But if you aren't in the Twin Cities, you are also in luck. With their Hair by Air program, HRI will reimburse your flight, get you to and from the airport for free, and they have complimentary on-site hotel accommodations. Yeah, that's right. There's a hotel attached to HRI. This is literally the best case scenario if you want thick flowing hair like a Viking or a rock star or a lion. Well, maybe that's too much. Check out the Hair by Air program at the Hair Restoration Institute of Minnesota at hrimn.com. And remember, you can't spell hair without HRI. All right, now what are we going to do with this guy? We can't just leave him lying around. Right?
I want to talk about Team Sleep, and I obviously there's some reporting on the genesis. I'm curious, like when do you recall like things starting to really pick up and like, oh wow, we're making some songs here, or when do you recall things being like more than just you guys playing on the 4-track?
I remember like those dudes were gone, like touring a lot, and I was working and going to school and stuff, and you know, I would just give Chino little tapes every once in a while, and it was just me. There's like layers of guitar parts, and I remember at one point he called me at work and was just like, "We're gonna make a record. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this." And I was like, all right, but you know, I don't know what I'm doing, right? But like if you say so. And then like Crook used to come visit because he still lived in LA, so he would come visit when I lived with Frank. And Crook was always, you know, he was real quiet and stuff, but he was always doing cool shit, and he was doing hip hop beats for that group Socialistic that I mentioned earlier. So you know, he was active and around, and even though we didn't live in the same city, but like then at one point I remember like Chino was like, yo, it's like, you know, it was totally like we had talked about making music for, you know, a long time, but and even though I was probably around Cook more than Chino was, but I think at some point he was like, yeah, let's do this. And so then it was the three of us, and then Cook and I were, I don't remember exactly like when we started making music together, whether it was probably it was because of like Chino, but I mean, it definitely happened very organically, you know, like where we were just around each other a lot. Not actually, it wasn't a lot because he was in LA, but you know, at some point I was sending him stuff and he was sending me stuff, and you know, we were kind of just playing, just writing little songs, you know, and just learning how to write songs. And like I think that style of writing, we kind of, you know, it wasn't dudes in a room playing together, so it was like we had to kind of figure out how to do it. And you know, other bands were, you know, there was kind of like the trip hop thing was kind of becoming a thing, and these other really kind of self-aware like fusions of whatever, and it was like, yeah, this and that, and it was like that always came off as being really kind of corny to me. And you know, I think what we were doing was very, we weren't trying to like fit a a thing. It was kind of just like, these are my friends and we're doing stuff together. And but Crook, the way that he uses a sampler and the records that he would sample from, and you know he's pretty he always wants things to be a little, like tweaks in a little way. And he's just like he is genuinely like a really introspective person, and I think that he loves to just sit with his gear and mess with it. And at that time I was just like, I really loved plugging a guitar into a 4-track and just genuinely just like learning how to use the like okay, this is the pan thing and this is the EQ, and like what if I flip the tape over or whatever. And falling in love with a piece of gear and exploring the little idiosyncrasies that it has to offer, and like the limitations of it, but then trying to work around them. When you're doing that, it's not like you're and like trying to use these technical things to and like develop like some skill with the technical part that can connect to an emotional thing. That's very different from like having pressure on you to like, I want this group of people to like it, or I want to like play with this band or whatever. But I think the purity of that and the just the innocence of that and the fun of that is what made that cool. And I always prefer that kind of thing. It's like, now I got a cool little studio, and it's like I have a bunch of weird pieces of gear, and it's like learning how to use them incorrectly, but then maybe, like I said, finding the idiosyncrasies of that, and then like doing something wrong and then trying to do it again, and then trying to make that into a something that you have control over to some degree, but there's also some unexpected part of it. That's, to me, that interaction with a piece of gear is something that is always so much fun, and it's so, like I said, removed from any kind of like conscious angling. And I think that is how I started playing music, just with a 4-track and their guitar. And I think that is very much a part of Crook's way of seeing things and making music. And so I think it lent itself together to be a cool thing.
And building those ideas into songs, that's like a whole nother like step, right? Like that's like the next level of, all right, how do we take these ideas now that we've gotten comfortable, familiar with these, with how to create using the pieces of gear, and exploring that, like then graduating to songs. Was that a big leap? Was that a challenge?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think that because of that, we had to do things more like where we couldn't do like key changes in a song, because a lot of times there would be a sample in like a drum sample, but it would have a note in it. And I know that's the case with the song 1111, where it has an A in it, and I couldn't really change keys in that writing with that. Oh, same thing with Foreign Flag too. I think they both have an A. They're both in A, and it was because whatever, there was just like a stray note in the sample. So instead of learning how to be good songwriters, we kind of like learned how to bring things in and out, and like more like in the way that like hip hop people do it. And I think that's why is like the same, because we're using more like kind of gear based stuff. And but we did with Foreign Flag, like the first version of that, it's online, like called Cambodia, Like that was a cool thing. We recorded that with Terry Date, and it sounds cool. It's a weird little cool little thing. But then we went after we did it in Seattle, or it wasn't Seattle, but it was Woodinville. But we were staying in Seattle. We did that with the people from Maverick or Warner Brothers or whatever. Like they wanted us to record that with this producer. So we met with him in Culver City, and I was kind of anxious about that because I didn't know what it was going to be like, and I didn't really just have much of a relationship with the people from the record label at the time. So I was like, all right, they're going to try and make us do some weird stuff. And as it turned out, that ended up being a guy named Greg Wells, who had a studio in Culver City. And he's just he's another great dude, man. Just like musically so talented and such a good person. And I mean, I remember being in there and it was like, I don't know if he just did this to flex or whatever, but I played something on guitar and then he sat down and played it on piano. And it was like, like he's like, you know, like I think he has perfect pitch. So like he knows what note it is, you know what I mean? And it's like, this dude is such another level in terms of being a musician. And so we talked about, I think we met with him and then we talked about, okay, well, cool, let's rewrite something or whatever. And then we'll meet up in a month or whatever. And I was like, that was so inspiring to me. I remember I went home and I wrote what later became like the chorus for that song. But he had a lot to do with it though, you know what I mean? And just in terms of like telling like try this note or try that. But I wanted to own it too, you know what I mean? And so he definitely pushed me and had a lot to do with it, like in a lot of other ways too. But that was a rad experience because it's like I literally have no idea what I'm doing, but like I'm working with this guy who's like this like genius dude, and also like I said, just a great human being, and and that ended up being kind of like a cool song that like is very much like a commercial kind of pop song, but I was happy with it, and I think we all had a chance to kind of try to learn and grow, which was cool.
Was it hard to come together with Crook, with Chino, like to be a band in essence? Was it any more difficult than just when you would get together and jam just as a hang?
No, not at all. I mean, like to me, like I think that a lot of that came from more like it was more accommodating in the sense that like I could do a lot of stuff at home by myself, and then Cook could do a lot of stuff at home by himself, and so that was really cool. But then when we did get together and hang, like a song like Boulevard, like that part, it was like a really quiet little like thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think we actually wrote that originally. We played a show with Abe, and or we were rehearsing with Abe, and did we play a show? I think we played with Abe, and when you get into a room and I have this like quiet kind of like tiny little parts, and then we start playing it together, and it's like he turns up, I turn up, and we got to be louder than the drummer, and then it ends up being like this big Pumpkins thing, like that's a straight Pumpkins ripoff, which I'm proud of. But
it's so rad. I love that song.
Thing. That was super fun. Like and then when Zach is in the room, I was like, oh shit, we really got to turn it down. But so that was a lot of fun on a different style, a different level. So like as much as we tried to resist. Well, it was not that we tried to resist it, but like as much as that band was built on me and Chino and Crook being this one thing, this kind of quiet like headphones thing, we couldn't resist it when we got into a room together to just be loud,
Yeah, that's fun that you say that quiet fun thing. I was looking for a while. I couldn't find my old Team Sleep T-shirt, and it got the rose on, and it says "Conserve el ambiente," and it's like, yeah, it was such a cool vibe, like so unique. Are you aware of how, I don't know, almost like mythical, like those demos and the stuff that like that was released or that came out prior to the release of the album, like are you aware of how, like, I don't know, I'm sort of at a loss for a word, but the word that comes to mind is like legendary, like that material is, like how special it is, because it seems sort of, it's like not official or whatever. It's not like, it's not on an album. You can't go just buy Ice Ache on a CD. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
does that register with you at all, or are those just like songs that you did?
No, I think I mean it is. I think that that's like kind of a byproduct of just like that, just innocence, and just like letting shit happen naturally. And like I think that was such an early time in internet culture that we kind of, when we had the Crook made this website, and then there was the message board that went along with the website, and I think in a lot of ways that was predating a lot of social media, and people would just like get on there and talk, and that was like the internet for some people. It was like kind of like the home, like social media for people, it seemed like. And we were just trying to figure out how the internet worked, and that stuff went into this weird little corner of the internet. And I think that if we had tried to if we had been more business minded about like how do we turn that into something, like it would have killed it a little bit, and
Sure.
I'm cool with that, like that trade-off of like, maybe I would have made $20,000 20 years ago, like I'm cool with that,
Yeah.
Because the one thing I never wanted to do, or never still want to do as a musician, is be desperate,
Right.
And like do weird shit that I don't really believe in,
Yeah.
So I decided to become rich and be a teacher. And hey, what's funny is that as much as like that's like, let's say hypothetically, if there were people who I had been around who sold drugs, hypothetically, I'm saying, like, let's say if like somebody sells drugs and they make like, damn, they just did this thing and they bought some stuff and they sold it and they made $40,000. Like, that's how much a teacher makes. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I'm sure that sounds like a lot of money to you, but it's, as a teacher, I have a really, like, I've never had to do anything weird. And not to mention the fact that like it's kept me musically from doing weird shit, but it's also something that I believe in as much as I believe in playing music,
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting to me that, in just in talking about these songs, and that's sort of the place that you go is like, well, yeah, it would have been some lost money, but whatever. Like that's smooth. Like to me, it's the first thing I go is like, man, like how did those songs even end up on the internet? Why didn't they make the album? You know what I mean? Like there's so many different other, but that's because you're the creator and you own those things. And so when they belong to the people and not you anymore, like that's a different, we're just looking at it from different viewpoints, I guess. But
I don't think those songs were really that good. I think that it was the way that people heard them.
You stop it right now. You
No.
stop that.
Well, no, but I don't think they were any better or worse than anything. But I think that when you get something and it's your thing, it's more meaningful. And I think that like that, it has nothing to do with the quality of the songs or being good or bad. But I think that everything is kind of like when you pay for it, it's like you're saying that's what it's worth. And like those things, nobody paid for those things, so they could be worth anything, and it's like but people like own it in their heart, and it's like it's like that getting out of the way so that relationship between an artist and a fan just actually happened, and it was like, all right, fuck it, we'll just leave it at that. But that's kind of a cool thing, and not trying to capitalize on that and not trying to turn that into something. And I mean, I mean, record companies do what record companies do, but I remember being in meetings with people from Warner Brothers and just being like, look, man, we don't have to cultivate some mysterious shit or like some esoteric shit. We actually don't know what we're doing. It's like, we don't have to cultivate it. You know what I mean?
We just need to figure out what it is.
Yeah, it's like, let's just be honest. And like people from, I remember there's a lady named Esther who worked on all the TS stuff, and I love her to death. And she like that was a really funny thing, but it's true. You know what I mean? It's like, whether it's a podcast or whatever, it's like, just if you have a real relationship with people, it's going to communicate more than a really well-written or well-recorded song that like has, whatever optimized chord changes and the number of, whatever, like, the way that everything right now, I think is so optimized, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That it's a lot less of that. Like we were dumb enough that we created and then left alone a weird idiosyncratic nook of the internet, and I'm aware that people really love that, and I'm glad.
That's so cool. That's just so cool. It's really, I mean, it makes the value of those recordings so much greater, like monetization aside. And I think that's probably like the big lesson. It's funny, it's Lars's birthday today. Like that's the big lesson that he taught us, right? Like you don't want to fight the people when they're trying to connect with something that they love. And that's why him railing against Napster was that, the L that they took. But it's really fun.
I mean, for me, it's like I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder about that it's like, if I do weird shit for money, like, and that's I think is like a very punk rock thing of growing up in LA. It's like, and I felt this really acutely when Team Sleep was, I guess I've always felt this way, is that like, I grew up in a cool house. Like my mom lived in a little house. She still lives in the same house, and they got a lot of love. It wasn't really like, a hard luck story at all. But when you live in a place like Los Angeles, and there's so many people who are so desperate for attention, and everybody kind of like wants to show out, and everybody really, it's like there's a lot of people trying to like flex on you and dominate you, in one way or another. And I grew up, like, they sent me to school in Santa Monica. It was like some stuff happened with my brother, and then like they sent me to school out there, and it was like a kind of a weird thing to feel like, I didn't really have it like these other kids, but it's like, if I was to do weird shit to get money, it would be like admitting that like they had what I wanted. Fuck them. Like, I'm dope. Like, they should want what I have with my busted ass sweatpants and my stupid ass little 4-track, because I put my heart into it. Wow. You know what I mean? So I think that like there is something real about that, that when I say those songs aren't great, I don't think they're like recorded that well or well written in terms of like, musicianship or whatever, but I think that there's a lot of heart there, and I think that always comes through. And whether it's me or Crook or Chino, none of this stuff was about there's a lot of really good guitar players at Guitar Center just like riffing, and nobody gives a shit. And I don't think I'm a very good guitar player, but I know I have a little bit of a voice as a guitar style, and like that just came because I just learned how to do it the wrong way. And so to me, it's like I never really wanted to admit that like I wanted something else. It's like they should want what I have. You know what I mean?
That's so rad. That takes a lot of confidence, and it takes probably a lot of confidence to create, especially, I mean, at that point in Chino's career, to go like, okay, I'm going to collab with this dude, and he's he's made a name for himself. And then you guys come together like that. That's I'm sure that does require a bit of confidence, even if you are friends 20 years at that point, or more, or a decade. Like that's,
Well, it took a lot of confidence for him because he had something to lose. I didn't have anything to lose.
you felt like he had something to lose by doing Team Sleep.
Yeah, because I mean, like he had a career, and like I'm sure he could have made records with other people who probably would have been, like more low hanging fruit and more commercially, like obviously a better idea. But shout out to him for not doing that, and like I think that following his heart and like thinking, I don't know why he would want to make a record with me and not whatever dude was doing whatever.
Sure. I can understand that. It's really weird talking about Chino and his career with you because he's your friend and I'm a fan. But I do love hearing your perspective on it because I think about that time and it was a lot of question marks about Deftones. And I felt like everything from the self-titled record through Saturday Night, like until Diamond Eyes came out, was a question mark. Like, is what's going on with my favorite band, and are they going to be a band again? But when I think about it in hindsight, and I think about Team Sleep in particular, Team Sleep was so important to my fandom as Deftones, and really to Chino in particular, because I think it was what ultimately led me to be both a bigger Deftones fan, but also like a bigger Chino fan. It probably is what ultimately opened the door to him being my favorite musician, because he does this different thing that's close, but it's not the same. And yet it's a totally different artistic expression. And yet, you're talking about it in terms of this time of probably coming at quite a bit of risk to him, and that's just really fascinating. I'm just really, I'm just really fascinated by hearing that and hearing your, because your vantage point was right there, but totally on the other end of the telescope. So it's really cool. It's just really cool to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, why would he? Like, I mean, I didn't like. He could have made a record with a lot of people.
Were there people banging down the door that you know of, or is that?
I wasn't really paying attention. I mean, at that time, I was working full time. I was going to school. I was doing,
Yeah,
friend. I was skateboarding, so I wasn't really paying that. When they were gone, they were gone, and I didn't pay like attention to what they were doing every day. Like
sure.
So, but when they were back, and it was like, my
Right.
friends back in town, and so we would kind of just pick up where we left off, but I did have like my own life going on, like separate, and like I'm sure I mean, I haven't really thought of it before, but those dudes were on tour with really big bands. Like, why come make a record with your friend?
Because those songs are so rad, dude. Do you have a favorite
Team Sleep song?
Yeah.
I think that the damn, this is cold blooded because it's not Chino, but the dopest thing that Team Sleep ever did was live, Staring at the Queen. Like when Zach and Crook would just go off, and it was like they would do this thing, and like Crook, like Crook was playing the samples, and Zach, and they would kind of like trade off and go back and forth. And to me, it was so chaotic and so wild and so like improvised, and everything was very like left field and forward thinking and just wild. So and it went from that to me and Chino playing like this little guitar part, and like that was like the prettiest melody, and like the cool, like, so it was like everything in that live thing was just pushed as far as that could go. So Staring at the Queen live with like just Zach just fucking ripping, dude, and mashing, and Crook just doing crazy shit with the sampler, and then like that guitar part, dude, that's a heartbreaker, you know what I mean? And putting those two things together into one thing is accessible, but also like left field and chaotic and forward thinking and all of that. So I think that's the dopest thing we've ever done.
That's so sick. Well, one of the dopest things that you've ever done was the Woodstock sessions. What I talk about it as it's not just like in terms of music and this podcast, but like in my life, that was my greatest regret in life, is not going to that shit. That was just, especially now, and seeing what we have on YouTube, and like how phenomenal those recordings are, and like everything about it was just so special. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel the same way about how special those Woodstock sessions are?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, and it was like, that's a very different setup too, in a way, because there's a lot going on. Like I was teaching full time, but like that was really so much centered around Chuck and like him putting all of that together, and then Gil coming in kind of like last minute and just killing it, dude. Like just being so good. But the whole idea, I think Chuck was such a great fit because he's just like a really like kind, thoughtful person, and you know what I mean. And it was like the whole idea of us just like, I don't know, I always felt real goofy about rock shows, like where it's like I said, the whole poser thing. It's like, yo, I'm rocking out, and like something about like different ways that people like hold their guitars, or they like their stance or whatever, and it's like
biting the lower lip and shit.
Yeah, it's like, it's so fucking stupid, man. Like all of that is so dumb to me, and like I could never really take like that part of it seriously. But at the same time, I didn't want to go like the Weezer route and just be like heavy irony and just like that's dumb as hell too. Not to say I don't like them, but that part of it is kind of silly to me. But so to me, like the idea that it's just like, let's just hang out with people and like we'll eat dinner and like we'll play music, and like I love food a lot, and Chuck really loves food, and I went to the Woodstock spot with him, and it was rad. Like we got, we stayed in New York. This was crazy though, because like I had just got diagnosed with this heart condition, and like so I was kind of scared too, like going out there, and like I didn't even know if I should travel, and ultimately it ended up being fine. But like but it was like right before I went, and like almost canceled the trip. But we went out to we went to the city and just like hung out in the city, and that was super fun. And then we went to Woodstock, to the studio, and like that was just like a beautiful place, and the studio was amazing. So we had a lot of fun playing out there, and then we decided to make the record thing, like the Woodstock thing, and we were trying, like me and Crooked started some songs, and then Chuck started messing with them, and then it was kind of like, oh cool, it's like this is gonna be the next TS record. And we had a huge amount of songs just coming from, I guess that was probably what, like 15. So like, obviously we'd had like 10 years worth of just like weird demos and like things we had been working on, start and stop here and there. And so we had a lot to pull from. And so when we actually went to do the Woodstock thing, that was really surprising to me. I think there was some people there that were from Australia. There were like, just the fact that like I'm going from teaching in like a inner city school or whatever, where it's like, we don't have the resources we need to like just run a classroom day to day. And then I'm going to go play a show, and people are going to come from like Europe and Australia and like all over the States, and like pay a bunch of money, which was, I thought was ridiculous, like a ridiculous amount of money. And and it's like, just like the absurdity of that, you know what I mean? And like I can't believe that this is happening. Like this is so bizarre. And then there was some other stuff going on with Crook that like just made it like pretty wild. And so to me it was like, I can't, like there's a part of me that's like, this shit is just weird. But at this point in my life, I'm used to that. You know what I mean? It's like everything is weird and ridiculous and funny.
I love that you've accepted it too. You're like, well, all right, I got another weird thing here. I suppose even this podcast is a little bit like, All right. Yeah, sure. It's weird.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I've been in, like you have this not the slightest idea, like of just like the. I mean, I guess but like part of it is just like it just seems really weird, to, like being in the band, but then also like I said, working with kids on probation or working with schools. It's like I'm like, oh, I gotta go take this call outside, and I'm having a conversation over here. But then I don't know, just like those juxtapositions are so goofy to me. But it did always kind of feel like that was always a thing. You know, I mean, there was times when like we were in magazines and I couldn't afford to buy the magazine.
Word. Totally.
And you know, it was like because I was in grad school and I had to pay, you know, so like just shit like that, which is funny. And like I think that's appreciation of all of that absurdity makes life way more interesting. Everything is like so fun.
If you're looking at it through the lens of like this is all just clownish. This is all just
but like also like super meaningful and like beautiful too, and stupid as hell all at the same time. But, you know.
I think that's a cool. I mean, but your experiences though, like that, because that's not necessarily an easy thing to swallow, that those things can coexist. You know what I mean? But your experiences uniquely, I think, have led you to that. It's not an easy a lens to approach the world through, because life is hard and everything else, you know.
Yeah, but I guess like intellectually, like, you know, like I've studied literature, so you know, where it's like, you know, whatever, it's like you read poems or whatever, and it's like you just start, you know, just being a normal human being. It's like we live on a planet, and like we make sounds, and like people can understand them, and like there's an animal in my house right now that like lives over there, and it's like shit is all weird, man.
It is all weird.
Everything is weird. Donald Trump was president of the United States.
Bro, don't even get me started on that one. That shit is the weirdest of weird.
Yeah. I remember one time somebody said like Team Sleep's not a political band. I was like, how you gonna tell me, motherfucker? But you know, I don't want to get hung up on that. But like there's just like life is so bizarre, man, and so weird, and like it's real painful sometimes, and it's real cool and sometimes, you know, and it's all of that is cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, well, this seeing as how we've been chatting for a while, this seems like an appropriate place to ask you my closer question. Actually, you know what? Before I ask you the closer question, I do have one more question about. I could probably ask you a lot of questions about that night, the Woodstock session, but it was brought to my attention that you handed everybody a CD when they walked in for the Woodstock sessions. What was on the CD?
It's just like I literally burned a bunch of CD like songs off my laptop.
Just TS songs, just a bunch of Team Sleep stuff.
Or just like demos, yeah, like just demos.
That's so
I
rad.
remember, honestly, it was like I just wanted to like give, like, in a way, it was, I guess it was kind of like the response that people had to the leaked demos. It was kind of like the same thing. It was like, here's a bunch more similar stuff that we did on our, you know, I made some stuff for my computer and then gave it to them. I don't remember what it was, honestly. It was
so rad.
It was very spur of the moment, like me and Chuck and the dude on the studio, Mike Birnbaum. We just wanted to. We're just like thinking of all like a lot of different ideas of ways that we could give people something like unique, you know?
Yeah.
And that was, I actually forgot about that, but yeah, it was like I'm trying to remember exactly what was on there, but it was just a bunch of little home demos.
That's so rad. Well, I mean, I think that's just such an incredible gift.
Like, is the song "No" on the internet? Like, do you know what that song? No?
I don't know. No, it doesn't ring a bell for me immediately. No.
Oh, okay. Because that was probably on there. Like, that's a song. It was like a guitar demo. Like my man Dan Elkin, who was in Hella, and he's like been in a lot of bands. Like, I borrowed a guitar from him one day. And like it was an acoustic guitar, and I wrote this thing. It was acoustic guitar and an electric guitar on top of it, and that was like a demo. And it's a heartbreaker, man. It was just, you know, just a little guitar melody, and I know Chino really loved that one, and he gave it the name No. And I think there's a version of it on the Woodstock Sessions record, but
Okay.
it sucks. It's not. It's the right parts, but like I actually re-recorded it with Gil recently, so we're gonna put that out as a separate thing. But that one, I know that one was on there.
Word.
But you know, there's a lot of demos like that.
That's so cool though. Like those recordings, not just the, I mean, even the stuff on the album, DeLorean is such an interesting, like it's this subtle, interesting musical composition. And then, you know, in Team Sleep lore, you know, in Chino's career, what a cool, like, piece of that puzzle, you know what I mean? Like that's I guess a lot of why Team Sleep is so special for me, is it's because of moments like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that was just a demo I did at home.
That's so rad.
On the record. And was that the one with the girl talking over it, the French girl?
Is that DeLorean?
No, that, but Crook played synths on that. Crook added that. Oh no, that was Paris on. I'm tripping.
Yeah, that's Paris on. Okay, yeah.
But both of those were just I recorded that. I remember I borrowed, Chino had a Roland 880 digital recorder. You know, they wrote the demos on the White Pony record on that machine, but then I took it and then I wrote all the demos for the TS shit. And so that one was one of them. And we actually used that on the record, actually, and the guitar tracks that I recorded, the demo guitar tracks I recorded on for Skull, and then later.
That song is so, like, that song is everything. That song is like, man, I don't know how, like, what the expectations were for Team Sleep, like from the record company's perspective, but to me, I would have had to imagine, like, when they heard Your Skull Is Red, they were like, yeah, we're good. They were like, we're straight. we're gonna make a couple bucks on this thing.
Yeah, those guys were pretty cool. The record, like, some of those people from Warner Brothers were really cool.
That's what's up. That's so cool, man. This has been an incredible. You've given me so much time. I'm gonna wrap the conversation up with a request for recommendations. This is something that I've started to do because of something Chino said on a pod, that the only reason that he tweets out links to songs that he likes is because he thinks that's the best thing that he could share on social media. So in that spirit, could you share with me something? It could be 3 things is typically what I ask of folks, but if you got even just one thing that you think people should spend a little bit of time with, whether it's music, if it's art, it doesn't have to be art, it can be anything in the world that you think deserves a little attention. What would you share?
Do you know this dude Madlib?
Madlib? Yeah, like the producer Madlib?
Yeah. So like he's got all of these records that he put out that are kind of like jazz records. And one of them is called Jahari Masamba Unit. And that record is really, really cool. Like that sounds to me like the records that Frank and I and Zion and all and Crook, like when we were kids and we were going record shopping, like that's what we were looking for. And I'm pretty sure Madlib had that same experience. So like that record is really dope. And then I'm still so in love with this band called Broadcast that I don't know if you know them.
No.
Yeah, I love them. Like the singer died. She had like died of the flu in like 2009. But like it's always been like one of my favorite bands.
What kind of music is it?
Kind of like a lot of synth based kind of electronic stuff.
Cool. With
live drums. And that band is really, really great. Their songs they did a bunch of records, and some of them are real wild and cool, and some of them are like just good songs. So those ones really still stick with me. And then I'm gonna plug my own shit. So me and Gil made a record, an EP, and we're gonna put that out pretty soon. Some of it, like the song Tennis, is gonna be on there. The song No started some songs that started as like TS stuff. Chuck plays on it, Ricky plays on it. So that one I think it's gonna be called Anti-Quant. We're gonna put that out, but it's gonna be a little while because Gil's really good at getting stuff done. in like a spot.
But you're not.
We finished this shit like a year ago, man, but just trying to.
Word.
I'm not good at finishing things, so hopefully that'll get out there soon.
Thank you, Todd. You're a real one for this, man. I know if you listen all the way, you're going to say I should have cut some stuff out, but I truly appreciate everything you had to say. Thank you. Only one more episode left in season 4. I'm ready. You got any guess who's my next guest? Let me know what you think. I'm at Woodbra on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to talk about my favorite band, hit me up. Thank you for listening to Deftones, and thank you for listening to Change in the House of Pods.